Hey everybody. Hey y'all. So I thought I'd make a video of how to do a spontaneous painting, one that we don't need a pattern for. Well, we're going to have a pattern. It's just not going to be reproducible. Not exactly anyway. So I have 11 by 14 canvas. I've got some water and I've got my paints, rinse cup and everything. So I think I'm going to make a pumpkin. And I want it just in the field. So I'm going to make myself a horizon line just with a regular pencil. I'm going to continue that over the sides of the canvas. So up here is going to be my sky and down here is going to be my field. And the perspective is going to be, the pumpkin is going to be the forefront. So I'm going to go ahead and make my pumpkin. I want a big round pumpkin. And I'll put a list of everything that you need when I post this video. So you'll see that it's not exact, but that's okay. I don't want it exact. And then I want to give the suggestion that it's a rounded object. So even though I dipped here on the top of my pumpkin, I'm going to make my pumpkin stem very wavy because I think those are cool, even curly. There you go. So something like that. And then I'm going to section my pumpkin. I have to do all my drawing now on my canvas before I put any paint on it. And the same thing goes like with the marker. You just ruin a marker if you used it on wet paint. So I'm going to make my sections of my pumpkin. Kind of rounding the top. Going right back over, making it just a little round up there. So that's all I'm going to do as far as a sketch. I'm going to wet my canvas, and this time I'm using just a little spray bottle, going right over my lines I just made. And then I'm going to get some paint, some cobalt blue. We use a lot of blue around here. Blue. And some titanium white. Alright, so when we wet the canvas, it has a primer on it, and that activates the primer, but it also allows for the colors to blend really good. So I'm going to mix some blue and some white in a very watery consistency. I didn't even wipe off my brush. And remember, up here is going to be my sky. So I'm going to try to avoid that pumpkin stem, but if I can't, I can't. I'm going to go right around my pumpkin. Same thing on this side. And it's a very watery paint because there was water that I placed in it. And there's also the water I sprayed on it. So it's not a solid consistency, and that's what I want. Alright, so over on the side here, you can dip in some more paint. We really want this just off in a distance, out of focus. This is not going to be the main focus of our painting. And you see I get down to this horizon line and I just turn it. And then always get the sides of your canvas. That way when you hang it up, you are going to have a completed work of art. It won't look like it was left unfinished. Alright, and the top and the sides. As you come into the studio, you'll see that the ones that are not finished on the sides or the top are usually Jimmy's. I'm going to hang you out to dry here, Jimmy. But that's because he clamps it down when he's instructing, when he's painting. He clamps down the canvas. I don't do that. I usually walk around with my canvas and talk to my painters and offer any help if I can. If I can. Sometimes. So there's a little hole here. I'm just going to fill in that little hole. It's easier to do it now than when my stem is painted. So as I post this, if you're going to paint along with me, you can stop it and go back and rewind it and back it up, and you know, if you already know how to do a step, you can fast forward. So right now I'm just blending however I want my sky to look. So I'm going to dip into some just white and put some clouds in there. These are just free flowing clouds. They don't have to be the big fluffy ones. I know people like the big fluffy ones, but all clouds are special. And you can just blend that right out. Now, I went into my pumpkin a little bit, and that's okay. That's going to actually look like shading. So don't sweat the little stuff. Remember, this is coming straight out of our imagination. So we're not following any pattern. It doesn't have to look like anyone else's. This is ours. All right. So I'm going right back over some paint that I laid on. And I'm just blending it. Blending seems to be a pretty hard challenge. But it's just repeatedly going back over the same area and smoothing it out. I do want a little cloud in here that's gonna give the impression that you can look right behind there. And since I did one there, I might as well do another one over here. All right, all my sides are done. I'm gonna lighten this side up a little bit. And it's just conscious what you want to do. You take a good look at your painting, right? Because it doesn't have to look exactly like your instructor. This is your painting. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna clean my brush really super good. And then I think I'm gonna do some grassy fields. And so it's kind of very similar to the sky, but instead of going horizontally, I'm gonna be bringing it up. Now I'm not going into my pumpkin just yet, but once the pumpkin is painted, then I'll bring the grass up into it. All right. I beat the devil, or the paint, out of my brush. And I'm going to dip into some green oxide. And it's just a full brush load. And I'm going to go make these passes on the vertical. Now on the sides, just to get it the green on there, you don't have to do the vertical. You just want to make sure that you're leaving space. We're going to put yellow in here. We're going to maybe even put some black in there. And I went up into the sky a little bit because you know that grass isn't gonna, well, I wish it would grow all one length, but it sure don't. And it looks really bad when you don't mow it. Ask me how I know. All right. So I'm continuing with the grass. And as you can see, I'm not going into my pumpkin. Then I'll paint the bottom of the canvas. Again, you want to see a finished, completed work of art when it's hanging on the wall. It just gives it that little sense of completeness when it's up and it's done. I watched a video yesterday of a lady painting, and she had a very good idea. She said she paints a border around her art, because she said it just makes it look a little more finished. It just brings that attention to the painting and not the frame. So I'm just going right up to my pumpkin, right at the bottom. This is all going to be shaded underneath, and I'm going to rinse the green out. Usually when we're painting, we paint a section and we let it dry, and then we'll paint another section while that's drying. That's intentful because it would all just be a big mess, a big brown mess if we just mixed it all together. So you got to let it dry a little bit. So I washed my brush real good. I'm going to lay a coat of orange on my pumpkin. And this is just the first coat, so it's pretty transparent. You'll be able to see through it. I was going to say something about being transparent, being able to see through the lies, but I'm just going to keep it right there. And we could still see our lines. We're going to put some shading in here. We're going to probably use some brown and some yellow highlights. And your pumpkin may not turn out like my pumpkin, and that's okay. Okay, do you see how through the green it already looks like there's shading down there? That's pretty cool how that works. Paint is so forgiving though, so if you make a mess, if you make, well, a mess is cool too, but if you make a mistake, it's really not, because once it dries, you can go back and you can cover that up. Nobody will ever know. All right, here's my two sides. I'm picking up a little blue. That's all right though. And I'm gonna go for the middle. And I made that a little roundy up there. Is that a word, roundy? It is now. That's what we ought to do. We ought to do like, anybody remember Justin T. Wilson, your genuine French cook? Well, we ought to do hillbilly painting, because I'm a hillbilly. Welcome to my channel. Take your shoes off. Oh, I already got my shoes off, so I'm a step ahead. So how's it looking, guys? Yeah, it looks like somebody in kindergarten did it, right? But it's the details that bring it to life. Right now we're just trying to get the base colors on, and then we can come back and we can add those details. That's my favorite part, is the details. But you got to get it in there first. You got to block in these colors. All right. Ooh. So I'm being very conscious about my brush strokes. You can see how you can see my brush strokes. And I want to give the illusion that this is a rounded object and that the ribs of the pumpkin are vertical. All right, so we got that. We got to let that dry. Wash your brush real good. Beat the devil out of it. I'm going to let our orange dry. I'm going to work on the green for my stem. Now you can make this into a jack-o'-lantern with the little eyes and stuff. I'm not going to. I'm just going to do a fall scene. So I'm going to dip back into that green, and I'm using, I think this is a number 12 brush, but it's the largest one that we have in this set. I'm going right around the rib of that pumpkin. I love pumpkins with the twisty stem, part of the vine left. Oh, I love that. But, you know, you're looking for one either to make a pie or to make a jack-o'-lantern. But You ever made a pumpkin pie? I don't think I ever have. I'm too busy buying them, too busy eating them. Love some pumpkin pie. So this is just our first coat. Doesn't have to be perfect, but do be aware of your brush strokes. So I'm getting into a really tight circle right there, and I think I'm gonna switch to a smaller brush. I'm gonna beat that brush really good to get all the paint out of it. And you never leave a brush in water. It's really bad for it. Alright, so I switched to a smaller brush and I'm gonna finish my stem, the first coat of my stem. I painted a baby elephant, a mommy elephant earlier. It was so cute. I'll have to show you guys. Really came out nice. But again, it's the detail. That's like the last. You don't want to spend that much time on the background, because you want to save your time for the detail. All right. So I've got my stem painted. Do you see back here? It is the back of the pumpkin, but I don't want to paint it black. So I'm going to use a dark brown called raw umber. There's a raw umber and a burnt umber, and there's a raw sienna and a burnt sienna. I love like telling the kids they just can't get those siennas right, or they can't get the umbers right. So I'm going to go right back in here with this dark brown. I'm just going to paint the back of the pumpkin. Same thing on this side. And I didn't really give myself a lot of paint. You can see that it's just a smidge, because even though I might need it, I want it to be fresh, right? Because paint will dry, especially acrylic paint. It dries so fast. And I can always get more. That ain't the last little bit of it they made. And so I'm going to go over this top pumpkin rib right here. And although that's a little thick, we can come back and we can fix that. All right. So these ribs, we're going to take that same burnt umber, raw umber, and we're going to put it right down here. That's the first part of our shading. And even though that pumpkin wasn't really dry, it still helps out. So since we're down here, we're gonna put that little brush and flick it up. That's gonna be some of our shading. Just gonna get all of that shading, because remember, we're gonna put grass and stuff over it, but we want it dark back there. All right, you guys still with me? All right, so rinse that off really good. And we're gonna stick with the big brush. So I'm gonna rinse this one and I'm gonna give it a rest. My mom used to tell me, give it a rest, Juju. All right, so now I'm gonna need some yeller. Old yeller. Am I aging myself? Does everybody know what that movie is? So I'm dipping into my yellow, and this is called deep yellow. So I'm going to put that right in the middle of that rib on that pumpkin. Kind of turns it orange, but that's okay. Now I'm going to do that on all 3 sections of my pumpkin. And remember, we're going to use some yellow on our grass, just to give it some highlights. We brought our puppy, well, one of them, into the studio today. We got Otis T-Dog, running around. And I'm still gonna curve this one here in the middle. Just the yellow though. All right. I'm gonna wash my brush out really good. All right. Now I'm gonna switch back to that small brush, the small flat brush, into the yellow. And remember when we were laying on the grass, we went vertical. I'm gonna dip into the yellow and I'm gonna do the same thing with short brush strokes. We'll go back in with some burnt umber. They all don't have to be straight, and it's not a good solid coverage because you want to see that green also peeking through there, peekings. It's just a nice little fall scene. Maybe my pumpkin is out in the field as we speak, waiting on me right now. I hope it gets good and fat, like me. While I have yellow on my brush, I'm going to go right down the middle of that stem. Ooh, I love when it gets all fancy. Fancy dancy. Oh, I love it. All right, I'm going to let that dry a minute. So up here at the top, because we have yellow, I always tell the kids when I do like the kids Saturday morning kids class, my phone go green, I pink it up, and I say yellow. They all roll their eyes collectively at me. But it's still funny. All right, now I laid that on pretty thick, that yellow. And that's okay to do. Lay it on thick. Like a used car salesman. I couldn't resist my temptation there. Apologies if any of you are used car salesmen. Alright, so let's work on some shading. With the same little brush, we're going to go into that umber. And I'm going to use it right on the edge. Very thin as I can get it. But it doesn't have to be a solid line. It can be wavy and bumpy because, you know, that's the way pumpkins are. We're just going to give the suggestion that this is a rounded object. So did you know that with just an empty brush with water on it, you can either take paint off. Here, I'll show you how to take some paint off. So that's a clean brush. And if I just keep rubbing, this paint will come off. See? You can take some paint off with just a clean. So going forward, if you ever need to, or you can wait till it dries, either one. So I have a clean brush, and I'm just going to smooth these edges just by going over them. It's not quite a dry brush technique, just cleaning up my edges like I was doing my hair. Okay, I'm going to do this middle one. I just want the suggestion. All right. So we're going to let that dry and work on our sky a little bit. So I want it kind of painterly. So when we say painterly, that means you can see the brush strokes, you know, nothing is absolutely perfect. So I'm going to take a loaded brush of blue and I'm going to give myself some dark sections of my sky. Just like that.
Have you ever wondered how to say good morning in Italian? Or what is goodbye in French? You can ask us. Just say, what is happy birthday in German? Or how do you say hello in Japanese? Do you want to know?
Alright, then I'm going to rinse my brush and I'm going to go back over it without any paint on it and blend all that. You can do the same thing with the white if you want. And don't forget about your sides, the sides of your canvas. think I may have pulled a little green, but that's okay. There won't be another. I'm going to add some white. There won't be another painting quite like mine, right? So I'm going to make a big cloud right here. And I'm doing that by patting or dabbing. You can make as many as you want or as few. You don't have to have these fluffy clouds at all. But remember the sides of your canvas if you do. And the top, that's where my cloud was going. It told me, Juju, I want to go around the top there. Okay. Fine. All right. We got a little one just starting right there. Maybe he's going around the corner and we don't know it. All right. So now I'm going to work. I'm going to let all that dry. I'm going to rinse my brush really good. And I'm going to work on the grass and the shadow under my pumpkin. All right. So I'm going to take some of this raw umber. And I'm going to put it at the bottom of my canvas. I'm not going to wrap it. I'm just going to put it to give the suggestion that there's a shadow. You can connect it to your pumpkin. And I'm just using very short paint brush strokes. Paintbrush. My little brain went. Okay. Now we're going to use some black. Now black is very, very scary, right? Because if you mix too much, it'll turn your entire painting black. And if that's what you're going for, well, that's a really cool thing. But if it's not what you're going for, right? So we only use a smidge of black here and there and everywhere, right? So I'm going to take same big brush. I'm going to take and dip it. Just if you can see, just the tip, just the tip, just the tip of my brush. And I'm going to make myself a line and just dotting this right around the edge of my pumpkin. Just to suggest it's really dark under there. And you could maybe put a little going out. Maybe it's got a few little leaves, little grass, blades of grass bent there. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and wash that black out. We're going to work on the grass. And I'm switching brushes. I'm going to the little liner brush. Because I'm going into the black. But I'm going to twirl it as I drag it through. That gives me a really fine little point. And I'm just going to make real little lines here in my grass. Just very random. You don't want it to look like a pattern. I'm going to twirl it. The problem with these little liners is they don't hold very much paint. So you have to dip quite often in it. And your lines do not have to be all the same. Some can be thick, some can be thin. All right. Then I'm going to wash my brush. I'm going to put a little white in my grass because that might be where the light is hitting it, right? Okay. And this is over in the distance. It's out of focus. We're going to come back. We're going to let this dry. We're going to come back with some yellow. And it's just all about layering, right? So you're staying with me? All right. Remember, you can stop, ketchup, and mustard too. All right. So I'm going to rinse that off. I'm gonna take black and I'm gonna go underneath my vine here. And if it helps, you can take your canvas and turn it upside down. I know that helps a lot of people. So I'm gonna put black on the underside, and then I'll probably go back and put white on the top, because that, you know, I'm assuming is where my light source would be. And this kind of also cements that this part of the vine is on top of the other one. All right. And then I'm gonna do my white. Same thing, if you twist it, it'll give you a nice pointy brush to work with. I'm finding that as I get older, my hands are shaking. Now I'm not going to go all the way under because the light wouldn't be underneath it, but it would be catching right at the top, and the top here too. Okay. I'm going to turn my pumpkin around. I think we'll work on our ribs of our pumpkin while everything else is drying. I'm going to switch to the small flat brush. And I am going to mix some orange. So I'm going to pick up some of my yellow and the orange we already have. I just want a variation of the color, a little more yellowy. I'm going to put that right around that dark that we laid on there. Put that right around there. Just toward the top of my pumpkin. And if you can see, like, there's a little spot right there, and I'm going to leave it because that's a flaw in my pumpkin, right? Looks pretty cool, actually. I'm going to take this right around the bend there. I might have to mix some more. Right around the bend, just to give it a little more interest. All right, some of that burnt, that raw umber, I'm sorry. I'm going to mix that in. Ooh, I like that color. So I'm going to put this right on the bottom of my pumpkin here. You know, in hosting paint parties, I see a lot of people, and I see how they paint. It's really cool. But did you know there are people, and if you're one of them, kudos to you, that don't mess up your palette at all. Like when I walk around and we're cleaning up, it just looks like they didn't even paint. I know they painted. Yeah, I'm not. That's good paint conservation. That's not me. As you can see, I'm making this texture here on the bottom of my pumpkins. Ooh, that got a little dark. That's okay, we're gonna go with it. All right, so we did the two outer ones. We need to do an inner and innie. And the color is, you know, because that's what I had on my palette, it's gonna vary from the other one, and that's cool too, right? And I'm just kind of curving it just to give that suggestion that that's a rounded object. All right, this one got a little light. That's okay. Like I said, we're gonna go with it. right, let me get myself a little more yellow. I said self. And a little more raw umber. And I'm not normally that formal telling you the color. It would just be a brown. We're gonna get a brown. Remember that hillbilly paint we're gonna do. You need a brown. Hand me my brown pants. Jimmy laughs at me when it gets silly like that. Alright, so I'm gonna take these lines, these curvy lines, all the way up my pumpkin. Do it over here as well. My husband is jamming and I love it. Nope, don't you dare cut that down. No, I love it. So I'm gonna make this area the brightest on my pumpkin, because that's the one nearest us, the viewer of our image. All right, so I'm not gonna rinse my brush. I'm gonna pick up some white. I'm gonna just fill in this space right here. And if ever you're painting and your painting starts to feel stiff or like it won't spread, you can always just add a little water and it helps the paint go a little farther. And then I'm gonna kind of fan that out right at the top there. Stay with me. I know it doesn't look like much, but listen, that's the trick. You gotta love it through the ugly, right? It's gotta be, it's not a finished, completed work of art yet. So it can't look like a completed work of art. I'm gonna switch. I'm gonna go back to my big brush. And I'm gonna pick up straight orange. I'm gonna come back and give that a light coat of that orange, and it's gonna blend. It won't be as bright as that cream color we just put on there. We're gonna go right over it. I think I lost my yellow, so we'll have to put some more yellow in there. And if you keep going over it, it's just gonna blend. Sorry. All right. I'm liking it. So I'm gonna pick up some of that raw umber. I'm gonna go back into the bottom. I did not rinse my brush. Giving that shadow underneath there just a little more interest. That's what you do. You just keep adding areas of interest in all of your paintings, right? All right, I am gonna go back into some white. I still have that raw umber on my brush. I'm going to give myself some highlights right up here, right under that orange that we put on there, because that's where the light is hitting our pumpkin. Remember, I still have the umber on my brush. I have not washed it out. So it takes the white and it mixes its own little color. All right, let's work on our stem. And then I might call it a day. Oh, I wanted to work on the grass. Okay, so we'll do the stem and a little more on the grass, right? Not bad for our first time doing this. So I'm going to go back into my umber, and we painted black on our stem, so we're going to go back and just create the shadow right there. It's all about shadow. It's like a dance, you know, it's a waltz. You're going to do dark, and then you got to put light, and then you got to do light, and then you're going to put some more dark, and that's the trick to it. Alright, so I think there would be a shadow right underneath here. And there's probably a shadow right in here. Oh, definitely a shadow over here. And right here. So it's looking pretty good. I'm gonna not wash my brush and pick up some more green. Gonna really intensify the green on the vine. I'm running out of green. Alright, gonna make this green pretty bold right there. Alright, then I'm going to, still with the little brush, the little flat brush, I'm going to go back in and I'm going to add some more of these vertical brush strokes in my grass. And if you want to pull it up into your pumpkin, now's a good time. Just a little bit, because it's resting on the grass. Put some back here in the distance. And then if you want to darken that line that's underneath that pumpkin, you're just going to tap that in. Alright, so I'm going to rinse that off. And then, that's what my granddaughter says. And then, alright, I'm going to take the little skinny liner brush. I'm going to twist it in my white. And I'm going to give myself some of these white, bright highlights. And it does not have to be a solid line. It can be, you can bounce it along there. But all the details is what makes your painting come alive. Let's see, where do I want a big... like it's catching the light, right? And then the very last thing that we always do is sign our masterpiece. And we tell people, if you don't like what you did, sign somebody else's name. So I'm going to put my little pirate slash right down here. Ta-da! Oh, it's 23, the year of Michael Jordan. Alright. Thank you for painting along with me, or for at least watching our video. You can find out any of our upcoming events on our Facebook page, and that is facebook.com/paintedapple219. Our events page is paintedapple219.square.site. We are located at 2536 Portage Mall, Portage, Indiana, and our phone number is 219-841-9196. Thank you so much, and I look forward to painting with you again.